start decks for Overdress were released back in May of 2021 and were followed by set 1 merely a week later. Since then, we have received quite a few more sets. And with the Overdress anime having aired its final episode and the DivineZ era looming over the horizon, we thought it would be appropriate to look back at all the units we have received. Doing every nation in one video would make for quite a lengthy video, so we're going to break it up into the 6 main nations and then do all the extras in one last video. In today's entry, we are going to discuss the nation of Stoicheia. We will again start the list with the start deck. Magnolia is a unit that allows your back row units to attack. The start deck form allowed one rearguard to attack from the back row and give it plus 5k. However, if you were to Persona Ride, he would give the ability to empower to 3 units. This form does have some card tied to it, but it's not really seen much outside of the ride deck nowadays. That is because of its second form, Magnolia Elder. At grade 4 that expanded on the original Magnolia's effect, he would call a card when placed on Vanguard, so he provided a unit, and if you had a card with Magnolia in Soul or Rearguard, all of your units get plus 5k, can attack and intercept from the back row. This gave the deck an insane 6 attacks, and similar to the previous 4 start deck grade 4s, Magnolia has received a promo to skip up from grade 3. And unlike Pure Light, who has not received a third form, Magnolia received a mask form. Magnolia Mask gives the deck access to removal. It allowed units on Dragon Tree markers to attack from the back row as well as providing them with an extra 10k power. So now any unit on a Dragon Tree marker gained a total of plus 15k. The deck plays max of both the grade 1 and the grade 2 Dragon Tree Wretches. It even received an in-theme Maple-like effect with Lepcore. Then we have supporting units that work with all the Magnolias. Alpin provides Soul, and countercharging Serval will let you dig for Magnolias and give your Persona Ride to your whole board. Goldote can come back from drop, give Soul, and replaces himself. And then we even have some guard restriction with things like a Brag. All these cards work with any form of Magnolia, and we even have confirmed support coming from Magnolia Elder and DivineZ. Moving on from Magnolia, we have the unit that debuted in set 1, Zorga. Zorga introduced us to Alchemagic, a new mechanic that allowed us to combine the effects of 2 normal orders. The first Zorga, also known as Blue Zorga, could even bring back a unit from drop for a CB. This form does have an order tied to it, but there is a generic replacement for it. Blue Zorga also introduced us to the cost reductors for Alchemagic with a Counterblast Reducer and a Soul Blast Reducer. Then following Blue, we received Red Zorga, who provided your front row with plus 5k power if you performed Alchemagic. He also let you get an order for drop. You would have to be careful with your Soul because his ability to Alchemagic was tied behind a Soul Blast. Both of these forms were tied to 3 attacks, so although they had insane levels of power, the aggro just wasn't there. That was until we received Zorga Mask or Purple Zorga. It's a funny thing that they had blue and red and then it combined into purple. This unit pretty much combined the effects of both blue and red. The Alchemagic was static, so no cost, and now you could gain plus 10k to the front row if you performed Alchemagic. You could also revive a unit from drop or get back in order. The best thing that came with Purple Zorga was a multi-attacker. Keel Severing could call itself from drop when Purple Zorga attacked as long as you didn't control Keel Severing already. Some orders you can consider are Gather Upon Me, You Wandering Souls for extra drive, Clouded Miasma for some resurrection and power boost, and obviously Mask of Hydrogum to search for Persona Rides. There are so many orders to choose from that it's completely up to you. As for the units you might see in Zorga decks, we have Shadow Cloak for order searching, and Roaming Prison Dragon for a recurable 15k unit that gains a crit. But let's move on from Zorga. We have the Stoicheia glitter deck, Roa. This is the main protagonist of the Craig Cross epic. It introduced us to plant tokens in Overdress. He has the ability to create 3 plant tokens for a Soul Blast and can retire tokens to gain plus 5k for each when he is attacked. This was one of the first instances of a defensive ability on a Vanguard. We have seen abilities similar to it in things like the Gorgon, a girl from Lyrical, and even the most recent Direful Doll boss that just got revealed for DivineZ. Roa was able to output 4 attacks at this point, then it received new support units. The grade 3 Ratalina can retire a Ratalina and a Moke to be called to rearguard. This means the deck had 5 attacks. Then similarly to the Plastic Glitter decks, he got a new form. The new Roa would make you plant tokens that would draw you a card when you're retired. It now gained a crit and gave himself and a glitter rearguard plus 5k, then would also return to the original format in return, meaning you got to keep the defensive choices of the original Roa active. Then we move on to Flagwork, who gains effects based on the number of attacks you've performed that turn. If you've performed 3 attacks, he draws a card. If you've performed 4, you retire 2 of your opponent's rear guards, and for 5 or more, he gains 10k and a guard restriction. The guard restriction would require you to call 3 cards to Guardian Circle for his battle. The deck struggled at the beginning with very few good choices for restanders, but now he has so many. He has Eric's, Inlet Pulse, Ascendant Assault. All of these can restand. Then he even gained Shelling Cannon Dragon that can attack from the back row. So now the deck has a total of 6 attacks, meaning that Flagwork doesn't have to be the last attack anymore. A strong deck that is only a couple of cards away from being able to fight with the top dogs of the meta. The abundance of removal in the meta is its current dilemma. Following Flagwork, we have the unit with the most boost. Leonore is able to use more than one unit to boost her. She came out in the Child deck alongside Youthbrick and Bejeweled. Her Child deck and main set form have the same super boost ability, which is what we will refer to it as. By Soul Blasting 1 and discarding a card, you can boost her with all of your back row rearguards. If you boosted with 3, she gains an extra drive. Then at the end of battle, you can restand 2 back row rearguards. The Child deck has a rearguard ability that is almost irrelevant, and the main set form has an act ability that allows you to draw some extra cards. Locked with 3 attacks in the beginning made her a bit too weak, but she received a support unit that opened up the deck to 4 attacks. Resonance Dragon could restand a rearguard at the end of his battle if you have boosted a total of 5 times. This was her biggest upgrade until we received Leonore Mask. She gained the ability to return a unit to board from drop and could retire an opponent's rearguards. Her super boost ability changed. It now costs a CB instead, but it would let you restand any 2 rearguards, not just the back row ones. This meant she had 5 attacks. She even got a countercharger and Amelia. Then Leonore gained a new form. Having just released in set 13, we got Leonore Vivace. This Leonore introduced us to Unison Dress, a new state you enter whenever you ride Vivace on a Leonore with a different name or a unit already in the Unison Dress state. Then her super boost changed to require you be in Unison Dress. When she attacks, she will restand all of your rear guards, and then they boost her. Then if you boosted with at least 3 units, you can counterblast 1 and restand 3 units, and they get plus 5k and drive -1. The loss of drive is because she can restand herself. This new Leonore has access to 7 attacks, which is insane. Leonore is another very strong contender in my opinion, with cards like Rosarium Fairy giving it access to insane power, Luster Impact giving card draw, Elentus and Eliza both have power increase effects that work with Unison Dress. But next up we have Maelstrom, the only Stoicheia encounter deck, which means that it is both the best and the worst one. Personally, I think what Flagwork does is better than what Maelstrom is doing, but he is still able to perform 7 attacks, but the main issue is that unlike Flagwork, power is a major issue here. Your board is almost exclusively great to choose because the multi-attack requires you to switch units on your board, so you can't boost, which means each unit has to be able to hit without a booster. So if your opponent hits 1 defensive triggers, you really struggle to hit numbers. Following that, we have Granfia, another plant token deck like Roa, but Granfia's unique ability is its method of making a Noble Rose token. The Noble Rose token takes your plant tokens and turns them into plant gauges. It then gains plus 5k for each plant gauge. Granfia can then remove plant gauges to restand a unit and give a plus 5k for each gauge removed. Granfia shares support with Leonore, so it has access to Rosarium Fairy and Luster Impact. This deck can produce a large amount of plant tokens / gauges, but let's move on to the Stoicheia deck from the Youthquake manga, Mythiarch, which is led by Lurutsul. This deck works by having multiple Mythiarch units with different names on board. Lurutsul can bounce a Mythiarch unit to call a different named Mythiarch card from hand. The deck even has a blink-like effect that allows you to reuse any on-place effects. It even has a promo coming out soon that opens the deck to a 5th attack. Alright, these next 3 I'm going to fire off pretty quickly. To speed up a little bit, we have Fabricated Dragon of Ruination, who can play an order from drop for free when it's placed on Vanguard. This card has only ever been relevant in Premium until they pretty much axed it. Next is Iron Anchor, who like Zorga gives you access to Alchemagic, but you can only Alchemagic orders with the same name. You can use many of Zorga's support to build something here, but with Zorga already being attacked, there's no real incentive to build Iron Anchor. Then we have Shield Fisher, an 18k base Vanguard that can attack only if you call the rearguard from somewhere other than from hand. He's the only one of these three that has received a direct support, that being in the form of Blessed Rain Fairy, who can counterblast one and call itself from drop if your Vanguard is Shield Fisher. This allows you to attack with Shield Fisher. This deck is a bit of a meme, but hey, we all have to have our fun deck. Following that, we have Claudine, another unit that cares about orders. She can retire 3 rearguards to gain a drive and gain the ability all of your plant tokens get plus 5k. Her second effect allows you to bind an order card from drop to call 2 plant tokens. And then her final ability requires a Soul Blast to choose a plant token, stand it, and it gets plus 5k for every 2 order cards with different names in your bind and drop. She is a promo and has no real direct support, but she can use both Zorga and Granfia support, so she has quite a bit to work with. But now let's move on to one of the more weird decks in Stoicheia, Mushi King. This deck is quite complicated and a little bit scary for people who are just trying to get into it, so let's explain it. Starting off with the crest, which is what the deck relies on, let's understand that before we try to explain the deck. The crest locks you into Mushi cards and doesn't allow you to play set orders besides by its own ability. That is because when you get the crest, you can search for 3 different great attack cards and put them into order zone. You must pick 1 hitting, 1 pinching, and 1 throwing attack cards when you do this. Then the next ability allows you to Soul Blast 1 to check top 5 for a Mushi or attack card and then add it to hand. The final ability says that when your Mushi attacks, you rest an attack card with grade less than or equal to your Vanguard and use that card's attack. Now that we understand the crest, let's move into the attack cards and the Mushi units. For the Mushi units, let's look at Tyranda's Stag Beetle. The only important things are the symbol, the skill point, and the super finishing attack. These determine what attack cards you may use. Now, let's look at an attack card. Since we picked a hitting unit, let's look at the grade 3 hitting attack card, Machine Gun Punches. It says that when it is used, you perform all of the following according to the attacking unit. The first is a skill point check. Machine Gun Punches requires a 20 skill point check, and Tyrannus is a 30 skill point level, which means it activates. So it gives Tyrannus plus 5k until end of turn. Next is the finishing attack. It asks for hitting, which Tyrannus is, so he gains another plus 5k until end of turn. Then the final check is the super finishing attack, which is Machine Gun Punches on Tyrannus and also the one it asks for. So now at the end of the battle this attack was used, you can counterblast 1 to resend the unit that just attacked and it loses 2 drives. However, if you are able to discard a copy of Machine Gun Punches from hand, the unit gains a drive. Some extra notes are that your ride line can either be all of a single attack if you don't plan on using your attack orders while you ride up. You also do this if you want to play a full set of the pinching and throwing units in the main deck. If you do want to use your attack cards early on, you can play a unit that corresponds with the grades of your grade 1 and grade 2 attack cards. You can thank Kat for helping me wrap my head around Mushi King. It is a little weird. If you have any other questions, we're more than glad to help you out. We will have a deck profile of this deck soon, but for now, this should give you a vague understanding of how it's played. The grade 3 attack card determines how your deck will be built, so it's hard to give a concrete list as you have to pick hitting, pinching, or throwing. But with that, we wrap up the final deck. Thank you all for sticking around, and I have seen an incredibly large amount of positive feedback on this series. I hope you're all enjoying this walk down memory lane. 2 episodes left. Next up is Lyrical Monasterio. I'll see you then.